just quit. Nobody asked you if you wanted the job. Nobody gave you a new title. Nobody gave you a raise. What you got instead was an email about a new AI tool that's supposed to help you handle the extra load. This is not a promotion. That is a company trying to solve a human problem with a software subscription. I found a post this week from someone in exactly that spot. 3,329 upvotes. 924 comments in 12 days. All from people who read one sentence and felt it in their chest. How do I stop doing two jobs? Today we're talking about why an AI tool cannot fix what an unpaid promotion breaks in your brain and what actually needs to happen instead before it costs you your health, your team, or the job you were actually good at before all this started. So what's the crisis? Before we go through that, this is Sahar Andrade. This is season 5, episode 3 of the AI Café Conversations podcast. Your favorite podcast, if I might say. We are the only podcast that combines between AI, neuroscience, and leadership from someone that actually holds a medical degree. I love to talk about nervous system, regulations, human-centered AI, and human-centered leadership. Thank you for your support for making us one of the top 2% global podcasts. I appreciate your help. So, going back to the crisis, here is the setup, and if you lived it, you already know the shape of it before I finish the sentence. Your manager leaves, maybe they quit suddenly, walked out on a Friday, and never came back on Monday. Maybe they got promoted somewhere else and took the good news with them, leaving you everything they used to carry. Either way, someone above you looks around the room, points at you, and says some version of, "You've got this." And increasingly in 2026, that sentence comes with a second sentence attached to it. We're rolling out an AI assistant to help you manage the load. I want to be precise about what's actually happening here, because this is one of the fastest growing patterns I am seeing across every industry I work with. Companies that can't or won't approve a new hire and won't budge on your compensation are reaching for AI tools as the answer instead. It looks generous on paper. Look, we are investing in you. We are giving you cutting-edge support. In practice, it's a workload patch dressed up as a leadership gift. No conversation about pay, no conversation about whether you ever want to manage people, no new title on your email signature, just more meetings, more decisions that used to belong to someone else. More people who now expect you to have an answer you were never trained to give. And now, on top of all of it, a new piece of software you are expected to learn on your own time so it can supposedly buy you back some hours. Same number in your bank account, same title on your badge and business card. The original post that caught my eye this week put it plainly. No dramatics, no venting for sympathy, by the way. This person described doing two jobs. Their old job, the one they were actually hired and trained and evaluated for, and their old boss's job, the one nobody trained them for and nobody is paying them for. They were not asking to be rescued. They were asking a practical question, the kind of question that tells you someone is trying to solve a problem, not complain about one. How do I stop doing two jobs? Here is what almost nobody tells you about that moment. You are not overreacting. You are not being ungrateful. And you're not imagining the unfairness of it. Your brain is doing exactly what it evolved to do. It is telling you the truth about your situation faster than your conscious mind or the AI tool you're just being handed. You cannot catch up or talk you out of it. So let's talk about what's actually happening under the surface, because this is where the real leadership work lives. And it has almost nothing to do with a job title on a piece of paper, and even less to do with which software your company just licensed. When something genuinely rewarding happens to you, like a raise, a promotion, with real authority behind it, recognition that actually matches your effort, a part of your brain called the ventral striatum lights up. This is core reward circuitry. It's the same system that responds to food, to connection, to winning something you work for. When it activates, you feel motivated. You feel like the effort was worth it. You want to do more of whatever just earned you that feeling because you feel euphoria and you want to keep replicating that feeling. Here is the part that every AI rollout memo misses completely. That reward circuitry does not activate because a tool made your task list shorter. It activates because another human being looked at what you are carrying and decided you deserve more in return of carrying it. A tool can reduce your hours. It cannot deliver the signal your nervous system is actually searching for, which is someone in power saw this and it mattered to them. Status increase without a matching resource increase doesn't register as a win. And a workload decrease that comes from a chatbot instead of a colleague doesn't register as being valued either. It registers actually as a deficit either way. Your brain is running the math constantly in the background, whether you are consciously aware of it or not. What am I putting in? What am I getting back? And does this feel safe? Or does it feel like I'm quietly being managed instead of managed with? And there is a second layer here that makes this specific kind of promotion sting more than a straightforward passed over for a raise conversation. This is not just about money, and now it isn't just about a missing conversation either. It's about being handed a tool with an answer to a human question. Nobody sat you down and asked whether you wanted to manage people or whether the AI assistant would actually solve anything real for you. The role and now the tool were simply placed on top of you. The way weight gets placed on top of a shelf that was never rated to hold it. Your nervous system doesn't just register the effort reward mismatch, but it registers the fact that a major decision about your own working life was made without you in the room. Twice now. One for the promotion and once for the so-called solution of it. It's also why the advice you usually get in this moment falls flat. Well-meaning friends and family tend to say some version of, at least they give you a tool to help, or that's how you climb the ladder now. Everyone's using AI. Both of those responses treat this as a logistics problem. It's not. It's a regulation problem first, and a logistics problem second. Get the regulation piece wrong, and even the most well-intentioned AI rollout will land as one more thing being done to you instead of with you. There is a physical layer to this too, not just psychological one. Chronic threat activation doesn't stay contained to your mood. It shows up in cortisol patterns, your stress hormone, in sleep that gets lighter and more fragmented, in the low-grade tension headache that's become such a normal part of your week that you have stopped mentioning it to anyone, in the extra hour after dinner spent learning a tool nobody asked if you wanted. Your body doesn't distinguish cleanly between a threat to your physical safety and a threat to your sense of fairness at work. Both get processed through overlapping systems. So what's the cost? Here is what happens next, and this part that turns a bad week into a bad year, sometimes a bad decade of your career. When your nervous system is registering a threat instead of reward, you don't lead from clarity. You lead from vigilance. You start managing your new team the way someone manages a threat that hasn't fully materialized yet. Guarded, exhausted, constantly watching for the next thing that's going to be asked of you, or the next tool that's going to be handed to you. Basically, the other shoe to drop, without ever being offered something real in return. That posture might keep you safe for a while. It doesn't make you a good leader, and deep down, you know it. Here is the part that should generally worry any organization doing this to people. Your team feels it. Nervous systems are not private, they are contagious. There is a reason a dysregulated leader almost always produces a dysregulated room underneath them. And it's not magic, it's mirror neurons and the social engagement system picking up on tone, posture, and micro expressions faster than words can ever explain what's happening. If you're quietly resentful, exhausted, and unsure whether you are even supposed to be here, your team knows before you say a single word about it out loud. And if part of your new job is now rolling out the same AI tool to them, they will absolutely notice if you are introducing it from resentment instead of genuine belief that it helps. I think about a different post from this research cycle. A story with a slightly different shape but the exact same root. An engineer, well regarded, sharp, reliable, someone everyone assumed would be thrilled about a promotion gets promoted. He quits the next day. When people finally ask him why, it turns out he saw exactly what was coming. More responsibility, same resources, no real change in how he's being treated, and he made a different call that most people make in that moment. He left before the resentment had time to set in and quietly rewire how he showed up at work. That's not a dramatic overreaction. That's someone whose nervous system did the math early and refused to run the experiment on himself. Most people don't leave that fast. Most people stay, absorb the gap, learn the new AI tool because they are told to, and let the whole thing slowly poison how they show up every single day in ways so gradual they barely notice it happening to them. Over a month, that looks like short tempers in one-on-ones that used to be easy. It looks like decision fatigue setting in by Wednesday instead of Friday. It looks like a leader who used to be a genuinely easy to work for, becoming someone their own team quietly learns to tiptoe around, all while the company points to the AI rollout as proof that support was provided. Chronic effort reward mismatch is one of the most well documented predictors of burnout in occupational health research. And it doesn't require a dramatic trigger to take hold. It builds through repetition, through the accumulation of small moments where the exchange feels lopsided. Each one small enough to dismiss it on its own. All of them adding up to something much larger over time. A tool that reduces your task list by 20%, while your sense of being valued drops by considerably more than that, is not a net gain, even though it will show up as one on a company dashboard somewhere. And here is the outcome nobody writes down in the exit interview, because by the time someone leaves, the real story is buried under 6 months of small resentments. The unfairness that started at the top of the chain becomes the tension everyone feels at the bottom of it. This is exactly how good managers accidentally become the reason good employees start looking for the door. Not because they are bad leaders and not because the AI tool didn't work as advertised, because they were never given the chance to regulate their own nervous system before they were handed authority and a tool that never actually agreed to carry. So, what's the solution? What do you actually do if this is you right now, listening to this on your commute or at your desk before the next meeting starts? First, name the gap out loud and do it early, not in 6 months. Once resentment has fully calcified into your personality at work and everyone around you has started to feel it, in the first 2 weeks, go to whoever handed you this role and say some version of the plain truth. I'm currently doing the work of 2 roles. I appreciate that you have given me tools to help manage the volume, and I need us to have a separate, real conversation about compensation, title, and timeline, because a tool changes my hours, not my authority or my pay. This is not being ungrateful. This is accurate, and accuracy is the most respectful thing you can bring into that conversation. There is also a neurological reason timing matters. Certainty calms the nervous system. Ambiguity keeps it actively activated and definitive, scanning for the next threat. The sooner you get clarity, even clarity you don't love, the sooner your brain can stop treating every single day as an open, unresolved question. If you need the actual words, here is a version that works in almost any organization. Listen to me. I want to talk about the shift in my role since the name of your manager left. I have been covering both positions for, say, how long? And I've also been asked to roll out, name the AI tool. Either it's Copilot, either Gemini, either it's Claude, whatever it is, on top of that. I want to understand how the organization is thinking about the human side of this in terms of title, compensation, timeline, separate from the tooling. I am not raising this as a complaint. I'm raising it because I want us both to be working from the same accurate picture. Notice what that script does. It states the facts plainly. It separates the tool from the race on purpose. It doesn't apologize for existing. It doesn't over-explain. That's not aggressive. That's regulated. Second, separate doing the job from holding the authority that should come with it. And separate both of those from whatever software you have been handling. This is one of the most common traps hidden inside an unpaid promotion right now. Because a well-marketed AI tool can make it look on paper like real support was provided. Sometimes it is. Often it's a substitute for a conversation the organization would rather not have. If you want the authority that actually matches the work you're already doing, you have to ask for it directly, using words in a real conversation, not by measuring how much faster the tool made you. Third, this is the one that actually protects the people underneath you. Regulate yourself before you walk into every conversation with a direct report, and especially before you introduce a new tool to your team. Not because you have to fake being fine when you're not, because your dysregulation becomes their environment, whether you intend it or not. A 5-minute reset before a one-on-one, 3 slow breaths before a hard conversation you have been avoiding, a walk around the block before you respond to the email that made your jaw tighten the moment you read it. These are not soft, woo-woo, out there optional habits for people with extra time. They are the actual difference between leading your team and quietly leaking your stress or your resentment about a tool you didn't ask for into every person who reports to you. This is actually scientific facts. I will not share anything that doesn't have a neuroscience explanation to it. And this is exactly the kind of moment my brain framework was built for. Spotting the precise point where a leadership transition, now often accelerated by a new AI rollout, turns into a leadership injury, and interrupting it before it becomes a pattern that follows you into every role you hold after this. And notice something about all three steps so far. None of them require you to reject the AI tool itself or pretend it's useless. Some of these tools generally do help with the volume of work. What they require is that you stop letting the tool stand in for the conversation the organization actually owes you. That is a skill, not a personality trait, which means it's something that you can practice and get better at, even if the first conversation feels uncomfortable. Fourth, and this one is easy to skip because it doesn't feel urgent the way the first three do, put a date on it though. Whatever conversation you have in those first 2 weeks, whatever answer you get, ask for a specific point in time when this gets revisited, like 30 days, 60 days, the next compensation cycle, whatever is realistic given how your organization actually operates. Open-ended promises to look into it later function neurologically almost identically to no promises at all. Because your nervous system cannot plan around a commitment with no edges. A specific date gives your brain something concrete to hold into instead of an indefinite loop of wondering whether anyone remembers what you were told or whether the AI tool quietly became the organization's final answer to your situation. Now, I know that some of you are already what you're already thinking because I hear some version of this in nearly every conversation about this exact topic. Isn't it the AI tool a good faith effort? The company is investing in you, giving you real support, and technology generally can save you hours. Why treat that as a bad thing? Here is my honest pushback on that. I'm not saying the tool is bad, and I'm not saying the investment is not real. I'm saying it's answering a different question than the one that actually needs answering. They're two separate things. The tool can reduce your hours, fine, but it cannot restore your sense of being fairly compensated. And it cannot substitute for someone in leadership naming out loud that the situation is unfair and temporary. Those are two separate problems, two separate paths. And solving one doesn't solve the other, no matter how good the tool is. And to the other harder version of this pushback, the one that says this is just how business works now, everyone's leaning on AI to close gaps, and that's simply reality in 2026. Sure, I get it. AI adoption is real and it's not going away. But look honestly at what it actually costs an organization when a tool gets used as a replacement for a fairness conversation instead of alongside one. We're not alienating AI. We're not saying it's not good, but that doesn't alienate the parallel path that we have to take. The engineer who quit the day after his promotion wasn't being dramatic or impulsive. He was doing the math of his own nervous system quietly and quickly, and choosing not to run the experiment on himself the way so many of us, without even realizing, we have agreed to. Every time an organization lets an unpaid promotion sit unaddressed, tool or no tool, they are gambling with their best people's tolerance for feeling used. There is a third version of this pushback too, quieter than the other two. And honestly, the one I hear most often in private conversations rather than in the comments section, what if I ask and the answer is no? Or the answer is just, here is more AI training instead. Here's the truth underneath that fear. If the answer is no, you now have real information you didn't have before. Information about how this organization actually treats the people who quietly hold things together. That information is valuable even when it's disappointing. It lets you make a decision based on reality instead of based on hope. The nervous system cost of not asking and continuing to wonder is, in almost every case, higher than the cost of asking and getting a clear answer, even an answer you don't want. And if you're listening to this from the other seat, the person who did the promoting and approved the tool rollout, rather than the person who got promoted, here is the honest pushback to you too. Handing someone software is not the same action as handing someone a raise. And treating the two as interchangeable on a budget spreadsheet is exactly the kind of decision your best people notice immediately, even if nobody says it so out loud in the meeting. The organizations that get this right are not the ones with the most advanced AI stack. They are the ones who name the human gap out. If this is you right now, if you're doing the job of two people, learning a new AI tool on top of it, and running purely on the hope that someone eventually notice without you having to say anything, here is what I want you to walk away with. This is not a you problem. And it's not a technology problem either. It's a nervous system problem wearing a job title and a software license. And once you can see it clearly, it becomes something you can actually address instead of just survive. You don't have to figure out which version of yourself you become in this moment alone at your desk, running the calculation in silence the way most people do. This is exactly the kind of transition that's easier to work through with someone who can see the pattern from the outside before it hardens into the way you need for the next 5 years. And here is the longer view worth sitting with. How you handle this exact moment, the first unpaid promotion, the first time a tool gets offered in place of a real conversation, tends to set the template for every promotion after it. If you learn to name the gap clearly and early here, tool and all, you carry that skill into every future role. If you learn to absorb it silently and let the AI rollout stand in for the conversation, that pattern follows you too, quietly, into rooms with much higher stacks than this one. Not sure where you stand in all of this? 30 minutes, no pitch, just clarity. Book a leadership clarity call. The link is in the notes of this episode, and let's look together at what's actually happening underneath the title and the tool that changed without anyone asking you first. Before I leave, I always say, show me some love, comment, rate, subscribe, share our podcast. Thank you for your support. If you have an issue and you want me to discuss it, email me at sahar@saharconsulting.com. Till we meet on Friday in the short Forbes article right episode. Peace out.
1